Everyone in the village laughed when Bella agreed to marry Daniel, the quiet, crippled man everyone called useless. They said she was cursed, desperate, or both. Some even whispered that she must have been blinded by poverty, but what none of them knew was that the man they mocked was hiding a secret powerful enough to change her life forever. Before we go any further, make sure you're ready, because this story will prove that the person you look down on today might be the very one destiny has sent to lift you tomorrow. Bella had grown up in poverty. Her father had died when she was just 12, leaving her and her mother to fend for themselves. They survived by selling roasted corn at the roadside, and sometimes, when things got worse, by borrowing money from anyone who would listen. But the debts kept piling, and the whispers never stopped. "Poor people always borrow," the villagers said. "They'll never amount to anything." At 24, Bella was known across the village for her beauty and her humility. But in a world where beauty didn't pay rent, she was trapped between hope and hunger. Her mother, frail and sickly, prayed every night for a miracle. And that miracle came one afternoon, though not in the form anyone expected. It was Daniel. He was the crippled man who lived near the old church. Most villagers avoided him. He didn't speak much, and when he did, his voice was soft but strange, like he carried too many stories he wasn't ready to tell. His clothes were plain, his small house half hidden behind overgrown bushes. People said he begged for food at times, though no one ever saw him do it. That day, Bella had gone to fetch water when she found him struggling to carry a heavy bag of rice from a rickety wheelbarrow. Without thinking, she ran to help. "Careful," she said, lifting the other side of the sack. "You'll hurt yourself." Daniel looked at her surprised. "People don't usually help me," he murmured. Bella smiled. Then maybe they've forgotten how to be human. From that moment, something in his heart shifted. Over the next few weeks, Daniel started buying roasted corn from Bella and her mother. He didn't talk much, but every time he showed up, he left her mother with more money than the corn was worth. Bella noticed how kind his eyes were, how grateful he seemed for even the smallest kindness. And slowly she began to feel something she couldn't name. But kindness couldn't feed her home. When her mother's health worsened, and the landlord gave them 2 weeks to pay their rent or move out, desperation set in. That evening, as she sat by her mother's bedside, tears streaming down her face, she whispered, "Mama, I'll do anything to save you, even if it means marrying a man I don't love." The next day, word spread through the village that Daniel had gone to Bella's mother with an offer, one that shocked everyone. He wanted to marry Bella. In exchange, he would settle all their debts and take care of them for life. The women at the market laughed. "Marry the cripple?" Bella must have gone mad. Her childhood friend Clara pulled her aside. "Bella, don't do this. You're young, beautiful. You deserve more than pity." But Bella's eyes were weary. "Pity doesn't buy medicine, Clara. And my mother doesn't have time to wait for dreams." The day of the wedding came faster than anyone expected. The small church was filled, not with joy, but with gossip. Some came to witness, others to laugh. Bella wore a borrowed gown, her face pale but composed. Daniel sat in his wheelchair near the altar, dressed in a plain black suit. When she walked in, their eyes met. And for a fleeting moment, she saw something in him that silenced her fear. Strength, grace, and an emotion she couldn't define. As the priest spoke, whispers rippled through the crowd. "She's marrying him for money. She's finished. What kind of future can they have?" Bella swallowed her pride and said the words she'd rehearsed in her heart. "I do." Daniel's lips curved in the faintest smile. "You don't know how much those words mean to me," he whispered. When the ceremony ended, he turned to her and said softly, "I know you didn't choose me for love, but one day I'll make sure you never regret this." His words stayed with her that night as they returned to his small, neat house. Everything was shockingly well organized. New furniture, spotless floors, a fresh scent in the air. It didn't feel like a beggar's home. As she laid her head on the bed, she couldn't help wondering, who exactly was this man she'd married? Outside, the villagers laughed and gossiped under the moonlight, but fate, silent, patient, and watching, was already smiling, because what everyone thought was Bella's biggest mistake was about to become her greatest blessing. The morning after her wedding, Bella woke up expecting awkward silence, But instead, she found peace. The room was quiet, filled with the soft scent of fresh flowers and the morning glow slipping through the curtains. Daniel sat near the window, a book in his hand, glasses perched on his nose. He looked calm, composed. Nothing like the broken man the village believed him to be. "Good morning," she said softly. He looked up, smiling faintly. "You slept well?" Yes, thank you," she said awkwardly. "Do you want tea?" He shook his head. "Already made some." Bella blinked. "You made tea?" He smiled, turning a page. "My legs may not work, Bella, but my hands still do." Something about his calmness unnerved her. There was no bitterness, no self-pity, just quiet strength. She glanced around the room again. The furniture wasn't what she expected. Elegant, polished, almost new. The curtains were of fine material, the walls freshly painted, the bed frame carved from mahogany. For someone who's supposed to be poor, she thought, this house looks suspiciously well cared for. Over breakfast, Daniel spoke very little, but when he did, his words carried a strange depth. He asked about her mother, her dreams, and her favorite foods. No one had ever asked her those things before. Not like that, not with such genuine interest. She answered shyly, half expecting mockery, but he only listened quietly, his eyes warm. When she finished, he said something she didn't expect. "You deserve more than what the world has given you, Bella. And I'll make sure you get it." She laughed awkwardly, thinking it was a joke. "A cripple can barely feed himself. What can you possibly give me?" He didn't answer. He just smiled and looked out the window again. Later that day, Bella stepped outside to fetch water from the well. Villagers passing by slowed their steps, whispering behind her back. "There she is. Still staying with that useless man? She must be regretting it already." Bella pretended not to hear, but the words cut deep. When she reached the well, she saw Clara waiting, her old friend, the one who had begged her not to marry him. "Bella," Clara said, crossing her arms. "You still look sane. That's a miracle." Bella sighed. "Good morning to you too." "Tell me," Clara pressed, "what's it like living with him? Does he even talk? Eat? Move?" Bella frowned. "He's not as helpless as you think." Clara rolled her eyes. "Don't defend him. You threw your life away for pity." But Bella didn't answer, because for some strange reason, her heart was beginning to whisper something different. That Daniel wasn't what he seemed. That night, while cleaning the house, she found a small wooden box tucked away beneath his desk. Inside were a few papers, a gold wristwatch, and a photograph. Daniel standing beside a man in a suit, both smiling in front of a large building with the sign Henderson Group Holdings. She froze. That couldn't be him, could it? The same Daniel who begged by the church steps, the one everyone mocked? Her thoughts spun. When he entered the room moments later, she quickly closed the box, pretending to sweep the floor. But he noticed the tension in her eyes. "What did you find?" he asked gently. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just cleaning." He studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You're curious. That's good. You'll need that someday." Before she could ask what he meant, he rolled past her toward the kitchen, humming softly to himself. The sound was strange, calm, content, like a man at peace with secrets he didn't plan to reveal. Days turned into weeks, and the rhythm of their life settled. Bella learned that Daniel spent hours reading newspapers and writing letters. Sometimes strangers came in shiny cars to visit him, men in suits who spoke quietly in the corner before leaving with firm handshakes. Each time, Bella watched from the doorway, pretending not to notice. Who were they? Why would such people visit a poor cripple? One evening, as the sun dipped low and the cicadas sang, Daniel turned to her suddenly. "Bella," he said, "would you come with me to the city tomorrow?" She blinked. "The city? Why?" "I need to take care of something important." "You'll understand soon enough." She hesitated. "I've never left the village before." "Then it's time you did." The next morning, a sleek black car pulled up in front of their small house. The same villagers who had mocked her now stood with mouths open as Daniel, dressed in a crisp suit, was wheeled into the car. with Bella sitting beside him. "Is that Daniel?" one whispered. "And that car?" another gasped. "No, it can't be him." But it was. As the car drove off, leaving a cloud of dust behind, Bella stared at Daniel. "Who are you really?" she asked quietly. He smiled, his eyes on the horizon. "The man everyone rejected," he said softly. "But that's about to change." Bella's heart pounded. Something told her that whatever waited in the city would change everything she thought she knew about the man she had married. And as the car sped down the open road, she realized something else. That for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the future. She was curious, because Daniel wasn't just hiding something. He was waiting for the right moment to reveal it. And that moment was coming fast. The drive to the city was long, quiet, and filled with thoughts Bella couldn't untangle. She had grown up hearing about the city, how it sparkled with wealth and swallowed the poor. Yet here she was, in a car smoother than anything she had ever seen, beside a man she thought she knew, but clearly didn't. Daniel sat beside her calmly, his expression unreadable as the trees gave way to tall buildings and glass towers that glittered in the sun. She tried to speak several times but stopped herself. What could she even ask? "Are you secretly rich?" sounded ridiculous, even in her head. When the car finally stopped, Bella's mouth fell open. Before her stood a massive building, tall, modern, and elegant. Gold letters gleamed on the marble front. Henderson Group Holdings. She turned to Daniel, confused. This is where we're going?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, come with me." As they entered, the atmosphere changed completely. People in suits bowed slightly, greeting him with respect. "Good morning, Mr. Henderson," one said. "Everything's ready for the meeting." Mr. Henderson. Bella froze. That name, that building, it was all connected. She stared at him, shock washing over her face. You're not Daniel the beggar." He turned his wheelchair toward her, his gaze calm but piercing. "No," he said softly. "I never was." She struggled for words. "Then who are you?" He looked at her, and for the first time, the mask slipped. "My full name is Daniel Henderson, the heir and CEO of Henderson Group. But 4 years ago, an accident left me unable to walk. My fiancée left me within a week, and the people I trusted most betrayed me. I wanted to see the world without my name or my wealth, to see who would still look at me like a man, not a title." Bella's breath caught. Everything, the visitors, the polished furniture, the quiet confidence, suddenly made sense. "You mean, all this time, you've been pretending?" she whispered. "Not pretending," he said gently. "Searching." She didn't know what to say. Her thoughts tangled between shock, disbelief, and something she couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe? For all the whispers, all the laughter, she had stood beside him, and now she was the wife of the man everyone in the village would fall at their knees to serve. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked quietly. Daniel turned his wheelchair to face the wide glass window, the city skyline glowing behind him. "Because if I told you, you might have treated me differently. I wanted to know who would stay when there was nothing to gain." Bella stared at him, her heart pounding. "And what did you find?" He looked back at her, his voice steady. "I found you." Silence filled the room. For a moment, she didn't know whether to cry or smile. All she could do was look at him. This man she had pitied, who turned out to be the one everyone else had underestimated. Later that day, Daniel took her on a tour of the company. The employees greeted her warmly now, recognizing her as the woman beside their boss. But Bella still walked like the village girl she was. Humble, polite, her eyes wide with wonder. When they reached his office, she stopped at the door, stunned by the sheer luxury. A desk of polished oak, floor-to-ceiling windows, and framed photos of Daniel before the accident. He looked happier then, walking, smiling, free. Her voice softened. "You must have lost a lot." He nodded. "I did. But I also gained something better. Perspective." As he spoke, Bella noticed something else. A picture of a hospital under construction, with the sign Henderson Foundation for the Disabled. She turned to him. You're building this? Yes, he said. For people like me, people society gives up on. I know what it's like to be pitied, to be laughed at, to feel invisible. I want to give them hope. Tears filled Bella's eyes. For the first time, she truly saw him. Not as the man she was forced to marry, but as someone with a heart far richer than his bank account. Daniel, she whispered, I misjudged you. He smiled. You didn't misjudge me. You just believed what everyone else saw. Now you know the truth. I never needed someone perfect. I just needed someone kind. That night, back at their home in the village, the silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was peaceful. Bella helped him into bed, her heart still full. As she pulled the blanket over him, he caught her hand. Bella, he said softly, you stood beside me when everyone else mocked me. You don't know what that means? She smiled faintly. Maybe now I do. He looked into her eyes. Tomorrow I want you to come with me again to the village council. Why? Because it's time to tell them the truth. Bella froze. You mean? He nodded. Let them see who you really married. And with that, he closed his eyes, a faint smile lingering on his lips. Bella lay awake long after, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. Tomorrow everything would change. The whispers, the laughter, the pity. Tomorrow the world would finally know who Daniel really was. And when they did, no one would ever mock her again. Because she hadn't just married a cripple. She had married a king in disguise. The next morning the sun rose brighter than usual. The kind of morning that carried promise in the air. Birds chirped from the rooftops, and the wind whispered softly through the palm trees that lined the quiet road leading into the village. Bella sat beside Daniel in the black Range Rover, her palms sweating as the car hummed steadily along the dirt path she knew so well. Her heart raced. The same people who once mocked her were about to see her return. Not as a laughingstock, not as the poor girl who married a cripple, but as the wife of the man they all secretly envied. Are you nervous? Daniel asked gently, noticing her fidgeting hands. Bella managed a small smile. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. They'll never believe it's you. They think of you as... She hesitated. As the poor cripple who begged by the church? He finished for her, his tone amused. Good. Let them keep thinking that for a little longer. Sometimes people deserve to taste their words. Bella looked at him, both startled and impressed. There was a quiet strength in his voice, not arrogance, but the confidence of a man who had endured humiliation and turned it into power. When they finally drove into the village, everything came to a stop. The market women froze mid-conversation. Men leaned on their bicycles, staring in disbelief. Children pointed, shouting, "A big car! A big car!" Mrs. Sarah, the neighbor who had laughed the loudest on Bella's wedding day, dropped her basket of tomatoes. "Isn't that Bella?" she whispered to her friend. "Yes," her friend replied, eyes wide. "But how? Who's that man with her?" Before anyone could blink, the car rolled to a stop in front of the church, the same place where Bella had said her vows in shame. Daniel's assistant, David, quickly stepped out and opened the door for him. Daniel rolled down the ramp in his custom wheelchair, dressed sharply in a gray suit that seemed to absorb the sunlight. The crowd gasped. Bella stepped out beside him, her posture straight, her dress simple but elegant. Gone was the timid girl who once lowered her head in embarrassment. This was a woman reborn. The whispers began immediately. "He looks different. Is that really the same Daniel? Wait, he came back in a Range Rover?" The village chief, Chief Dominic, approached cautiously, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. "Daniel, you... How?" he stammered. "Last we saw you... Were the man everyone pitied?" Daniel said calmly, finishing the sentence for him. "Yes, I was. But that's the thing about life, Chief. People forget that even those they look down on can rise higher than they ever imagine." The air grew thick with murmurs. Bella's mother rushed forward, tears brimming in her eyes. "Daniel, my son," she whispered, trembling. I don't understand." Daniel smiled softly at her. "You don't need to, Mama. Just know that your daughter's kindness changed my life. She saw a man where others saw a burden. And today, I've come to return what she gave me. Dignity. He turned to the crowd, his voice firm but steady. You all mocked her. You all said she married a cripple for money. But tell me, where were you when she chose compassion over comfort? When she stayed by my side, when she had every reason to run? The silence was deafening. Even the wind seemed to pause. Mrs. Sarah, the nosy neighbor, stepped forward hesitantly. So, you're saying you're not poor? Daniel asked, a faint smirk on his lips. No, far from it. He gestured toward the car. I am Daniel Henderson, owner of Henderson Group Holdings, the same man whose company donated that new school building last year. And this woman, he said, looking at Bella with pride, is my wife, the same woman you laughed at. Gasps erupted around them. Some people clutched their heads in disbelief. Others looked down in shame. Chief Dominic cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. Mr. Henderson, please forgive the ignorance of this village. We? There's nothing to forgive, Daniel interrupted softly. But let this be a reminder. Never mock someone because of where they are today. You never know where they'll be tomorrow. He reached for Bella's hand, and she squeezed it gently. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of relief. For once, the whispers were not of pity, but of awe. Mrs. Sarah stepped forward again, trembling. Bella, my daughter. Forgive us. We didn't know, Bella smiled kindly. You don't need my forgiveness, Mama Sarah. Life already taught you the lesson. As Daniel's car pulled away, the villagers watched in stunned silence. Some waved awkwardly, others bowed their heads in regret. But Bella just sat quietly beside him, looking out the window as the village disappeared behind them. I think I've never seen people that quiet before, she said softly. Daniel chuckled. Silence usually follows revelation. She looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For making them see me differently. Daniel turned his gaze toward the horizon. You're wrong, Bella. I didn't make them see you differently. You did that yourself, with your heart. And as the car sped away, leaving the dusty road behind, Bella leaned back, tears of peace slipping down her cheeks. For the first time in her life, she realized she hadn't just married a man. She had married destiny itself. And destiny, though it may arrive late, never forgets those who believe in love beyond appearances. A few weeks after that unforgettable visit to the village, life for Daniel and Bella settled into something that could only be described as peaceful glory. The mansion they now lived in overlooked the same hills where Daniel used to sit in his wheelchair, watching the sunrise and dreaming of something more. Only this time, he wasn't dreaming. He was living it, and Bella was right beside him. One evening, as the golden sunset bathed the sky, Daniel sat on the balcony, his wheelchair beside a small table filled with tea and biscuits. Bella walked out quietly, her laughter carried by the wind. I still can't believe it, she said softly. Sometimes I wake up and wonder if I'm dreaming. How did my life change so fast? Daniel smiled, taking her hand. It changed the day you chose kindness over pride. You didn't marry a crippled man for money, Bella. You married a man everyone else had given up on. You looked past what the world saw, and that's what gave me hope again. She blinked back tears. And you gave me something I never thought I'd have. Respect. A home. Love that isn't ashamed to stand beside me. He squeezed her hand gently. You deserve it all. At that moment, the maid appeared with the evening papers. On the front page was a headline that read, Billionaire Daniel Henderson and wife visit hometown. A lesson in humility. Bella chuckled. Looks like the whole world knows now. Daniel smirked. Good. Maybe they'll finally learn that wealth isn't in what you wear or drive. It's in how you treat people. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. The crickets sang in the distance. The sky deepened into purple, and the peace between them felt like something heaven itself had written. Because in a world that once mocked her, Bella had found something worth far more than gold. She had found love that saw her, valued her, and never once judged her for being poor. And Daniel? He had finally proven that even the richest man in the world can be poor until he finds the one heart that loves him for who he truly is. True love doesn't see wealth, beauty, or status. It sees the heart. Bella's story reminds us that what the world calls weakness can become strength when met with kindness. Never judge a person by their appearance or circumstance. You never know the crown humility might be hiding under those ashes. Sometimes the one everyone laughs at becomes the very one destiny crowns. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Share it with someone who still believes love only lives in riches. Because Daniel and Bella proved the greatest treasures are found in hearts, not bank accounts. Don't forget to like and comment where you're watching from and subscribe for more emotional and life-changing stories that remind us all. Kindness is the greatest form of wealth.